Zach, this week we are going to do something very different than what we have done before. Usually we do a fair amount of telling on buffering, but this week we're actually going to do a lot of showing.
I think people are going to have to either open YouTube or open the Spotify app to look at what we're talking about, because we've talked a lot about bad websites in the past, but today we're actually going to show one that we built based on what we've seen. So based on real examples without throwing anyone under the bus. And then we actually went ahead and did some AI work and built out some best practice websites that we want to share with you as well, using different AI tools.
I'm so excited to get into this, man. It's going to be really fun and actually show some of these specific examples. So yes, this is an episode that you probably want to watch the video of, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Spotify. I still think Apple doesn't have video podcasts, right? They keep talking about it, but they don't actually have it.
They're rolling it out. And Gabe, this is what I was talking to you about earlier this week. This is like the big crisis of the week was to get our video podcast into Apple Podcasts, we have to lose all of our existing video podcasts on Spotify. And transparently, to my Apple Podcast listeners, including myself, if you want to see the video, go to Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. We are not going to lose all of our existing videos. Sorry, Apple. But to your point, Zach, we actually did, and I say we, and mostly mean you, built a fake service provider website that combines pretty much every single one of the worst offenses that we've seen in the wild. There's way too many pricing tables. There's the contact us dead ends. There's the fiber sheathing conversations and descriptions, which I know is one of your favorites. Totally non-mobile responsive layouts. All the, frankly, just garbage that we see out there in the real world. Now,
you know what's funny about this, Gabe? I'm like 99% positive when I built this, I actually optimized it for mobile. So
did you really? That's hilarious.
I took it the extra step. I'm just pulling it up on my phone now, but
oh, that's funny.
I took it too far.
Take that one away then. Maybe this is maybe this is ready for mobile, although it's still a hideous website. That is for sure. But this isn't a real provider. Obviously, we made this up, but it is a lot of the real problems that we see every single day, Zach. I mean, we talked about this when we did this episode a couple of weeks ago about bad websites and what it's costing you. The reason we did it is because we had looked at 3 websites that week, at least, probably more, honestly, that were pretty horrific and were, really causing a lot of problems for the provider. So what we really want to do today, again, instead of just talking about this, we want to show. We're going to actually pull up that bad website here in just a moment. We're going to talk a little bit about what some of the challenges are that we see in it, although I think they're probably going to be pretty obvious. But by the end of this episode, we're going to go through Copilot, we're going to go through Claude, we're going to go through Gemini. We're not saying you have to use any one of these tools. That's why we wanted to go through a couple of different examples. And frankly, the output is very different from each one of these as well. So I think it'll be a really interesting episode to see kind of what the output is like from each one of these different tools, AI tools, and then frankly, how we can make these things better.
Yeah, out of everything we will show you today, there's only one wrong AI tool to use, and I won't name them until I name them. But Gabe, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to share my screen here, and keep in mind, just to summarize what Gabe just said, yes, this website is a bit more dramatic, but every single element is based off something that Gabe and I have seen on a BSP website. So with that, Gabe, I'm going to share my screen real quick.
This is where we maybe have to warn people to avert their eyes a little bit, or at least be prepared to have their retinas burned with the terribleness of this website.
The sad part is someone probably spent a good amount of time building this.
How many prompts did this take you, Zach?
It was a prompt or two, but Gabe, I hope you can see this.
Oh, it's hideous. It hurts my eyes. It really does.
I did get a little dramatic when I sped up the ticker on the top of the page here, but
the ticker does make me laugh.
that is something that we've seen from other websites. But let's walk through this a little bit, Gabe, because when I visit this page,
about the issues.
The first thing that stands out to me, besides the ticker on the top, is I'm jumping right into that pricing table. And if I scroll down a little bit here too, We mentioned the one last week that had like 10 pages and you could like go through the pages. I only did one page. So think of what that looked like. But this is already very overwhelming. All it is basically just an Excel spreadsheet. I have no context, no information about these plans. The names themselves mean nothing. The 100, the 200, the 400, the 500. I don't know what's in it for me. And then from there, we jump right into the data rate units, the asymmetrical speeds, the latency, the data cap, which I always say, like, if you have a data cap over a terabyte, like, do we really need to talk about that?
Yeah, great
The
point.
modem rental,
I love
the
that you
contract.
changed the data caps for the different service tiers as well, and also changed the modem rental fees to be different across the board.
Well, hey, that 1 gig modem is going to be very different than my 750 modem gauge. So
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
but the
100%.
last thing in this table that I kind of want to point out here, Gabe, before I want your input here too, is just the pricing, the $10 price points across the 10 tiers we have. And by the way, the Turbo Gig Max Pro Elite, that's again a little bit more dramatic, but that's something we see every day. And that's
Mhm.
something that I don't know what the speed is without looking at my download speed column, but I don't know who this is even for at this point.
It's a great question. Again, yeah, who is this for? And just because you're calling it Max Pro Elite does not necessarily make it better. And yes, again, we're being a little bit dramatic about, about turning up the contrast of some of this, but these these are legitimate examples that we have seen out there in the wide world. I need you to scroll down a little bit, Zach, so we can talk about
Be-
the network technical specifications, because
Before we
that's
do
going to be
that,
another one of my faves.
can I call out my smart list default, Gabe?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Because
Yes.
this goes back to the smart default conversation we had a couple weeks ago now. All I did here was I looked at this table. I said, what's my middle plan? Oh, it's the Turbo 200. That's the recommended or the best value plan.
But
Again,
it's the
made
best
that decision.
value, Zach. It has to be
It's
the best
well,
value, right?
it's in the middle, and I want to draw people's attention to the middle, of course, Gabe. But uh, we've talked about this on the podcast in the past too. But I just undersold my next 5 or 6 plans, um, and I'm losing out on revenue because I pick that middle plan with really zero context and zero insight into how I want to create those smart defaults. So that was the last thing on the table, Gabe. But if I scroll down a little bit, what can you tell me about the network specs here?
Oh, the network specs. They're just so glorious. All of these detailed descriptions of technology. And then one of my favorite or least favorite options that I see on a lot of websites, the how fast is your connection download time calculator. Zach, how much time, we talk about this so much, but how often is anybody actually downloading anything these days? It's very rare. And the fact that we're using that as a value prop for trying to get people into higher end service tiers is just baffling to me still.
Well, hold on, Gabe. My HD movie at 1080p is still downloading, so I can't get back to you just
Uh,
yet. But this does infuriate me. And the iTunes song, yes, I called out iTunes because I'm looking at your broadband websites and I see you talking about downloading iTunes songs, iTunes albums. It blows my mind that that's even being talked about in 2026. Um, but
I
this
wish
this
I could
little
get
interactive.
my iPod back and go download some iTunes songs onto it. It'd be glorious.
Oh
99
my
cents a
gosh.
pop. Man, it was a
I
simpler time.
simpler so call it what you want, Gabe, but the network type at the top, the tech specs, the signal requirements, again, these are all different elements that we've seen. And
Yes.
the interactive like download time calculator, I don't want to see that on any broadband websites moving forward. The comment I made last week was I don't know the last time I downloaded an Xbox game, but I know the
Hmm.
last time I used Nvidia's cloud gaming. That
Yep.
I use that probably, I don't want to say daily. I'm not a huge gamer, but I use that weekly. And I don't see any plan on this website or any speed comparison on this website that recommends something for my lifestyle.
I was listening to the episode from last week. I think it was the last week's episode where we were talking about changing descriptions of service tiers to what people are actually using, kind of in the similar vein of this download games versus using online gaming servers. And one of the things that popped into my mind that I wish we would have mentioned there, so I'm just going to mention it here. I've seen some recent statistics about the percentage of people that are using AI tools in their personal lives. Like, why would we not be leaning? It's a huge percentage. I want to say it's over 40% of people are using AI tools, whether that be Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, are using these tools on a regular basis. Why would we not be talking about that and the experience that you can have, leveraging these AI tools and resources on your super technology plan or your tech adopter plan? Like, if anybody's going to be adopting those tools, it's going to be the people who fall into those tech adopter groups.
Absolutely. And we're going to clean this website up. And we have a prompt that we're going to share with you. And we're going to do this live throughout the podcast as we walk through other examples as well. But the last thing I want to call out here is the frequently asked questions. Actually, this is not the last thing. There's a little bit more. But the frequently asked questions here, last week, Gabe, we talked about Google and the importance of recent data on your website. Would you say that this frequently asked questions aligns with how people are using the internet here in 2026?
Yeah, I would say no. It probably does not really align. Good idea to have FAQs. FAQs are important. They're certainly important from an AI search perspective, from a GEO perspective. Very important to have those.
If
Do
you
you support
maintain 'em.
Windows? Exactly. Do you support Windows Vista is probably not one of the FAQs. I'll be just throwing shade at Microsoft in the middle of that as well. But yeah, so be thoughtful about what those FAQs are. If they haven't been updated in a while, if you're not being thoughtful about, how people are actually using the internet today, then update those FAQs. And that's something that is not difficult. It's a pretty easy change to make, especially if you already have the structure that exists there. It's just a matter of adding those FAQs. Frankly, even adding the FAQs is not that hard, but certainly updating them if they're there becomes even easier.
I mean, it's a conversation of why are subscribers calling in? What's the top 10, most call-in reasons you have or most frequent? And then building your FAQ based on your actual subscriber needs. This is outdated. This is not up to date. AI is hopefully not going to recommend anything we see here. But if I go back up to the top here, just a few other things that annoy me a little bit here. The visitor counter, it's not 1999. I don't need to know that. And I actually see this on a lot of websites, and someone listening to the podcast is probably going to get annoyed when I say this, but I'm probably not coming to your broadband website to check the weather. Personal opinion here, I think the weather widgets are, again, well past their time.
I've seen weather widgets. I've seen weather cameras. There's some of these things, traffic cameras as well. I just don't understand why those are on a broadband website taking up space that could be used for something else. So I completely agree with you. There's lots of other places to go get this information. It's not something that needs to be crammed onto our broadband website.
So Gabe, I think we should talk now about how we fix this.
Yes, let's make it better. Let's not talk about the negative here. Let's focus on the positive. So,
And
Zach,
to do this, go ahead. Yeah, walk us through.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned this earlier, but we do have a prompt that we're going to, and we're more than happy to share this with people at the end of this. But we're going to take this prompt and we're actually going to put it into an AI tool and let this run in the background, kind of as we're going through the rest of this episode, and then we'll come back to it and see what it looks like at the end. So I'll just mention kind of like best practices here as it relates to the prompt itself. There's a lot of things that you need to provide in a good prompt. Who you are, who the audience is, what the site needs to do, what the buy flow should actually look like, what your tone and your brand is. Like, those are really important things. That's important context to provide to AI. And there's also things that you don't want to do. You want it to lean away from the tech specs. We've talked in this prompt here about, leaning into what benefit is the customer actually going to get out of this, leaning away from the technology, but talking about the actual benefit that the customer will get by signing up for this service. So, I don't know if there's anything else that I missed there, Zach, but I feel like those are the really key things that that key context that you need to provide to AI if you want to get a good result.
I think that's exactly it. I did just change our model from Opus 4.8, which just came out because I haven't tested that specific model yet, to my favorite Sonnet model here. So this is going to run in the background here. Now, for this demo, I'm using Claude. And at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that you can really use any AI tool of choice. So as this runs throughout the podcast, last night, Gabe and I finally started our own broadband service provider. Dare I say, communication experience provider. And what we did is we took that same prompt and I ran that through as many AI tools as I could. I even ran it through Perplexity. And I will note I will not be showing you that example because it was just so bad. I ran it through Meta. I ran it through Copilot, Gemini. So we're going to walk through each of these today and start talking about some of those best practices. So, Gabe, as this loads, are we ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's let this run in the background and we'll dive into some of the ones that you actually created last night.
All right. So, welcome to the Otter Drift communication experience provider. What what a, could you think of a better name, Gabe?
It's wonderful. Remy is so happy right now. Remy's mom's probably really happy right now. It's just, and a lot of the otter imagery that you were able to sneak in here just really made me laugh, and
I was
was just
cracking up because
fantastic.
on the plan selection quiz, I actually didn't prompt like specifics there. I said help me make a quiz, and it did. But we'll talk through that. But Gabe, I have to show you something here. Number one, I think Claude is very good at doing the websites. I thought, and you'll probably see this a little bit. Gemini um, becomes a little text heavy. It doesn't do
Mm.
as good of a marketing language, if you will. But here we go. For my prompt, it knows I'm looking for that experience provider mindset. And it's talking right in the header here how we don't sell internet plans, we sell connected lives. And I did give this like a more Teton, Jackson, Wyoming theme. So you'll see
Mm.
that throughout all these demos as well. But check this out, Gabe. You can actually interact with the
Oh, I didn't
otter.
even see that. Oh my
And
goodness.
the best
I
part,
missed
that was
that.
part of the prompt. So you'll see how this happens on each of these websites here today. But let's go ahead and scroll down. Number one, I love like the animated numbers there that
Mm.
talk about like the Google ratings, the number of connected households, the hypothetical support response. Hopefully yours is a little bit faster. Your network uptime as well. Getting a little technical there, but again, that's AI contributing there. And now, speed is a number, experience is everything. So it's taking everything
Can we
we
just
know about
pause
that
there for a
legacy
moment?
provider. Yeah.
Yeah, can we pause there for a moment? That's a good tagline, Zach. And if we think about, moving away from speed and price, it's a good way to reframe the traditional way that people have thought about buying their internet service. So I think this is quite strong already without a ton of context that you've given to it, it's a pretty strong start.
And I should note the prompts I use, they're pretty detailed. I can tell it, and you'll see this throughout everything, like the color schemes and talking points, language. One thing here, again, I can't remember exactly how I said this in the prompt, but I said, "Hey, my brand is Otter Drift. The language we use should match that. How I talk to my customer should match my brand. I'm making that my brand." So you can see here, you don't understand how fast the download was, but you remember when that movie streamed perfectly. And you can see down below, little otter fact for you, again, going back to my brand, that otters don't struggle against the current. They become part of it. And that's how your connection should feel effortless, natural, and moving with you. And then we talk about more of the business value here, built for my town's family. Your home's protected by default. Signal that lives where you do. So thinking about that outdoor Wi-Fi, no dead zones, things like that. And then my favorite being that local provider. We're a neighbor. We're not a call center. And as I scroll down here, now we can see the connected life. And Gabe, last week I made a comment and we kind of joked about how I don't like service tiers. So in a minute, I'm going to show you this exact same website, but envisioned a little bit differently. So we don't have these service tier columns. But from here, you can see my plans, which were, of course, named after my brand. So we have
I
our
love that.
drift, the
Yeah, so
current, and
good.
the summit. Yeah, we had a little bit of fun here, and the drift is where everything just works. You don't have to think about it. And then with current, maybe it's this is a home that moves with your family, with the kids at home, the work calls, streaming, everything at once. And you can see the features here. This is something we typically see on broadband websites, and who it's for. Even going back to that Turbo Connect website we showed, like we already can start to look at these plans and say that one's for me, that one's for Gabe. Whereas with that TurboNet plan, we're still 3 out of 50 into the service offerings table.
Hmm. One thing I just want to call out here, Zach, as you're going through these kind of details, there's a couple of things I want to point out. One, it's not just a feature dump. we're talking about what specific benefit the subscriber is going to get out of buying that service. So that's really important here. The other piece is, this is where having this type of detail on your website is really beneficial from a GEO and SEO perspective, to go back to the conversation we were having last week. These type of details, and when you embed this code in the back end of the website as well, these are the types of things that those search engines are going to be looking for, and they're going to surface this into the results that users are searching through when they're actively out there trying to find a new service provider. So this sort of serves two purposes. It serves the purpose of explaining the service in a way that makes sense to a human, and explaining it to that synthetic consumer that Zach's been talking about for the last couple of weeks.
And, one thing to keep in mind, Gabe, is I built that comparison chart because one of the things I did with this, I said, hey, build this for AI. And then I said, build it as a legacy website. And I have that comparison chart that says, this is what changed that you won't see visually on the front end, but the back end, AI models are picking up on. And that's
Mm-hmm.
great added context. One of the things I do want to call out here, though, Gabe, is I didn't talk about mesh. I didn't say satellite Wi-Fi. I didn't use those terms, but look what I did say. Whole home coverage, including outdoor areas, garage, and outbuildings. I'm talking about specific use cases or specific
Mm-hmm.
needs as opposed to meshes included. I think
Yep.
that's a very different talking point, just to call one out.
It's such a great point. And one of the other challenges I've seen, to get really specific with other broadband service provider sites, is providers will often try and include a number of mesh units in higher end tiers as a way to incent people to move to those. So maybe the baseline tier will just have a single Wi-Fi appliance. The next one will have two, and then the next one will have three. What happens in that situation, though, is if the customer buys the top end tier and your technician gets out there and doesn't install three Wi-Fi appliances, the customer is going to be mad, because they're like, hey, man, I want my three. Like, you told me I was going to get three. And what I've seen is that, unfortunately, when you have more Wi-Fi systems than you need, it actually causes more harm than good. So you've created a situation where you're harming yourself, you're harming the customer's experience, because the Wi-Fi is going to interfere with each other, right? If it's in a too small of an area. So that's something I would really encourage people to think about, and maybe think about moving away from, and move to the language that Zach is talking about, because there's a lot more flexibility in there to provide still a rock solid Wi-Fi experience, but the customer's not going, hey man, you said I was getting three of these, I want my three.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of speed run through the rest of this website here, as I scroll down here, again, AI loves these little metrics
Mm-hmm.
that surface here. What's included in each experience, and this could be separate pages. You could do this differently, but this is just that comparison table. Maybe you collapse that as well. That shows the features in each plan for, again, those who are looking for that. And then I love bringing in the customer testimonials as
Yeah,
well.
for
So
sure.
what do people say? But not just people. What do different personas say? What does this remote executive say? What does this property owner say? What does this retired physician say? This helps people who may relate to those professions or may relate to these people identify why they should choose this PSP, or identify what plan they should pick with. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, my favorite, find your flow. Not sure what experience fits. Well, who's at your house? Is it just me? Is it a couple? And the two otters there
I love
for
the
happy
two
meal.
otters.
We've got to click
So
that one.
good. Absolutely.
How often do you work from home? Well, I'm full-time remote. How connected is your home? Well, I'm actually quite connected, but I'm pretty automated too. So maybe I click that. And then my final question here, um, I I don't want to worry about it, so I'm just gonna say it just works, and it recommends that plan. Now, of course, at the end, here's my FAQ. Again, making sure that I'm focused on what's important to my subscribers and what I want people to know about me in the market. Now, Gabe, as I wrap this up here, I'm always happy to share these mockups with anyone or help you create some mockups of your own. But looking at this exact same website, there's that interactive otter again. What does this look like without columns as service tiers? Well, here we go. Find your flow. So here's the drift. And the thing with these plans is, instead of that feature benefit list, you can see we have these little cards now. If I jump into the current, it updates. So I get everything in Drift. I also get device prioritization, outdoor coverage. There's that mesh, the family tools, or maybe I want to go up to Summit. Well, now it's going to bring in that new card. And by the way, you can choose which one of these smart defaults is present on your website or present in the ads you send out as well. So otherwise, the website's the exact same for everyone. But I did want to go back to, well, what does a non-tiered column layout look like?
I quite like this layout. I think it looks super clean. The other thing that you could do really easily here is, and it kind of gets back to the social proof comment you made a couple of minutes ago, Zach. You could actually pull in social proof for people who are on each one of those plans or who would resonate with those plans. So, here you've selected Summit. If you scroll down just a touch on this page, you can see those kind of call outs of the Drift Current Summit. Very easily, those could be replaced by social proof for the Summit or for the Current. So rather than having to scroll down to see some of that social proof, you can still have it in other places of the website too, but it comes directly into that buy flow to validate the experience that customer wants to get.
Exactly. So these website templates, these were made by Claude. Now let's take a look at Gemini. So again, same prompt here. Check out the interactive otter. It's not as
Oh,
not as not
yikes.
as smooth, but it moves around.
It is
Um,
there.
I don't know why I love that so much, but you can see it's a fairly similar website. Again, the marketing language is a little bit different now. So stop
hmm
swimming upstream, drift instead. I still love that. As I scroll down here, Gabe, I don't know if have you seen this template yet? Because there are some pretty cool things that Gemini did that Claude did not.
I have looked at it, but I maybe didn't look at it in enough detail because
Okay, well,
I did not notice the harmony is an experience tagline, which I quite like.
okay, well, there's a couple things here. So this, I don't like calling out your competitors by name on your
Yeah,
website because you're
agreed.
inviting them in. You're inviting them into your own home, right? But you can see here, auto drift. We have some information here versus the legacy utility. You can kind of switch between the two of them here. The constant speed trap panic, where you're just sold theoretical download speeds. Nobody wants that.
hmm
And then if I scroll down a little bit more, this is what I don't know if you noticed here, Gabe, but
I did
I
notice
did
this. This was cool.
I did not in any way prompt Gemini to build this. It just did, but it says a day in your connected sanctuary. And the big thing here I want to just call out is you can take this and say, hey, AI tool of choice, build this widget for my website or build this section for my website. And you can take these blocks or take these ideas, these widgets, these apps, whatever you want to call them, and integrate them into your existing website. But all I'm doing here now, you can see, I've got a slider here at the bottom I can interact with. At 6 a.m., the sun's coming over the Tetons. And we automatically shift priority into the executive loft where I'm having my work priority channels enabled. Maybe my bedrooms are in quiet sleeping mode for the family devices. But then if I drag this up here, you can see how that experience shifts. As we move into the evening, that's where we want that multi-device connection to be balanced. Um, the family's active, streaming, school, maybe the kitchen appliances are connected and all active as well. Whereas at night, you can see that night mode as well. So that night harmony mode where the kids' bedrooms devices are offline. We have healthy sleeping cycles. No one's online late at night. Smart devices, IoT devices, lock security systems are working quietly as well. So I did really like this little
I,
interactive widget here. Again, this was
I
not
do
in
as
my
well.
prompt, but now I could take this and say, hey, build this for me.
I quite like this. And it really draws you into the story of that connected lifestyle. I think this is really smart. And to your point, Zach, okay, maybe you like some of the things that Claude did better, but you really like this widget. Okay, great. Well, then go tell the other AI tool that you're using that you want to build something like this on your website. So you can kind of, you know, make an amalgamation of these things or combine these things together based on the best practices that you like or just best practices in general. But I really, really like this personalization here. I think there's a lot that could be done to even personalize it further, but it's a very cool way to think about how broadband service impacts all of these different activities throughout the day and night.
And keep in mind, if you're watching this, this was a a single prompt. It was a long prompt, but again, I didn't prompt it to do this, but this was a single prompt. So if you wanted to refine this or modify this, you can continue to do that. But I think this Gemini example is just a good way to see how things might differ between AI agents. So here are my three
Hmm.
columns again. Again, keep in mind Claude's original service tier layout was columns. I did prompt it to make the card one we just looked at here as well, but it's really the same kind of feature set right here, right? Like, here's the features it came up with. Here's the who it's for, the names. The names are even actually, the names might be identical, I think. Is that Drift, Current, and Summit? I think that was the exact same, um, Drift,
It
Current,
is
and
the
Summit.
same.
I
That's funny.
I did not give it those, but, we'll see how that changed here in the next two examples as well. But, you can see for the rest of this website, it's largely the same. Here's that quiz that I asked for. Again, kind of, similar to that house model we just looked at. Um, Again, I did mention that the Gemini text seems to be a bit more technical. So you can see it mentions things like our system algorithm or initiate configuration. These are not terms that I would typically use. But again, a single shot prompt here, very easy to clean that up and to fix that as well. And then finally,
Yep.
on the bottom here, here's just the rest of that quiz here as well, where it's going to recommend that plan. And then at the bottom, we have our features and table. And then finally, those testimonials. But Gabe, that's the Gemini example. I am very impressed with both Gemini and Claude. They both do things a little bit differently, relatively similar, as you can see, though. But Gabe, are you ready for the next two examples? Because now we're going to shift a
I'm
little bit.
scared. But yes,
And
yes. Let me see.
this is where you have to keep in mind, although we're using the same prompt, continuing to refine or continuing to change how you use AI to get the output you want. Don't just take the first thing AI shows you and think that that's the best or that's the winning solution for you, because you end up with something like this. This is from ChatGPT, and you can already see it's quite a bit different. The colors are not quite the same. The There's a lot of text that's kind of condensed here, so it's a much
Mm.
shorter website. So I can see here, I've got my personas, remote work, movie nights. Then I have some information about whole home coverage and quiet protection. I have the headline here about the internet not feeling technical. So again, we're kind of leaning to that experience provider, but there's just not much context around the features and the benefits and the solutions that these other
Well,
websites have built.
what's interesting too, Zach, if you go back up to that section you were just on, it feels it's negative. Like it's negative marketing versus the positive marketing that we
Hmm.
saw on the other two websites where we were in those. It was talking about the positive experience. Here it's talking about
It
frozen
says
video calls,
frustrated,
dead zone.
distracting.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, smart homes that aren't smart. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of selling to FUD, right? Like it's
I
in my
I
mind much
agree.
more effective to sell to the positive.
Yeah, and these are problems your competitors don't have. And why, going back to the whole layout here, why are we leading with this? Again,
Hmm.
same exact prompt, but we're leading with this information. And then we get down to our tiers, and this is where you see, choose how your home feels. You can see now, like, again, keep in mind my prompt was to make this on brand, but like, for being honest, Fireside, Ridgeline, Alpine doesn't really have anything to do with the otter drift. Like, even like the Claude and the Gemini examples talking about flow or swimming with the current. It's a much different feel than what we've got here. And then we also go into whole property coverage. Well, if you think about what I just said is, don't just say it's a mesh, talk about the use cases. Well, what is your whole property use case? Is it to the garage, to the shop? Like, these are conversations that should be had. And our salesperson here with ChatGPT on the website is just not making that connection here. So I don't want to like totally trash the ChatGPT website. There are some things it did pretty well. I do want that cabin that it generated here.
Place
I
looks nice.
cannot imagine what that plot of land costs with the lake and the Tetons behind it.
We're going to have to start making a lot more money from buffering for you to afford that, my friend. Also, can I just say one thing really quick? Entertain without limits. Why are we showing clearly an apartment in a giant city when we're trying to sell to Jackson, Wyoming? Like there's just
Exactly.
these disconnects that happened here with the imagery. So it is cool that it created images, but whereas the others really didn't, but it feels very, at least that one on the right feels
And
very
it was
out of
actually
place.
I was surprised on that game because in the past when I used Gemini to build a website, it did build images. That was the one where like the living room had like a half-built kitchen and like it was just like random walls. And again, I don't like AI generated images to begin with. I cannot think of a greater waste of a resource than that. But if I just kind of wrap up this website here, now we start talking about the features a little bit, the benefits there, but we're just not tying it back to the what's in it for me. I did
Mhm.
like the neighbor, not a call center. That was pretty,
That's good.
visible on all of these website pages. Scrolling down here, build my experience just takes me right back up to the top. There's no quiz, so I don't know what happened there. Like I said, same prompt, but finally, Gabe, before we look at the TurboNet, we have to talk about the Copilot. And then if you know me, there's two AI tools that I refuse to use: Copilot and Apple Intelligence. Bottom of the barrel there. Copilot is good for finding emails though, and things like that. But the Copilot website, and I haven't even shown Gabe this yet. It was so good. But here's the Copilot website.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number one, my brand isn't anywhere. There's not a single otter on here, so I'm obviously, you know, doing a strike there. But it's just chaos. I've got way too much text.
Oh man.
My service tiers kind of got jumbled in here. But I go back to like the feature list kind of thing, whereas it's whole home Wi-Fi, guided setup.
Mm.
It goes back to my question of what's in it for me, and I'm not getting that from this website. There's no images. There's a form that you almost gets lost here, but I do have my FAQ at the bottom here. So this was the Copilot version, Gabe. I didn't want to spook you too much with this one, but I had to do it.
Yeah, that's it's not great. And this is where I think Copilot struggles a little bit. It's certainly good for enterprise use cases. I've found it very beneficial to use in office tools and things like that. But it definitely struggles when it comes to creative things, and that's where things like ChatGPT generally shine, like Claude shines. Like Gemini, where Gemini shines. And again, we're not telling you to use one tool versus the other. You certainly think about the tools that you have access to and what's appropriate.
And what
But
each tool does best. I mean,
exactly, and
of
what
the
each tool
three we
does
looked
best.
at,
Yes.
Gabe, I think we can confidently say that each one of the tools we looked at today, with the exception of Copilot, did something better than the other. Now,
Hmm.
my
Agreed.
favorite, can I pick a favorite? I'll pick a favorite. My favorite is personally the Anthropic or the Claude one with the cards
Mm,
and not the service tiers.
I agree.
This
I
one is
like that a
my
lot too.
favorite. Like even the header here, Gabe, we talked about, the interactive otter, of course, um, the quote here relating my brand back to our mission of you don't know what your, download speed is. You remember just the experience, tying that back in. I think that worked very well. On the Gemini website though, I really
Oof,
love this
love
home
that.
widget. And I'm
I would
already thinking of
100% be stealing that. Yeah.
how can I steal this? And now that I've seen it, now that I've been given this inspiration or been given this idea that I otherwise would have missed, how can I make it my own? How can I take this and run with it? And that's like one of the best things with AI is what did I miss?
Hmm.
How can I make this better? Of course, is one way to start the prompt, but AI's got your back. What am I missing out on? How can I improve this? Or again, fill in the gaps with me.
I've
With all of
gotten to the
that,
point. I've gotten to the point now with AI, Zach, just to close off on that point around prompting and things in that conversation, where certainly exactly what you're saying. What did I miss? Where did you just close the Claude one that got
oh,
created?
I'm just opening it up. It's
Oh, okay,
I'm getting it
okay.
queued up
It
here.
freaked me out. I was like, hey, what gives? I want to see what it created while we were chatting here. No, so just to close off on that part of the conversation. So, yes, ask it what you've missed. What gaps do I have? What blind spots do I have? Those sorts of things. Really important. I've also been asking it a lot, how should I be giving you this prompt to make it as efficient as possible for you? Which sounds a little bit weird, but it's like you give it all these details, then ask it, how should I flip this around to make sure that I'm giving it to you and giving the prompt to you in the most efficient way? So some just different ways to, end your prompts that are going to get better results for sure versus, what we like the one-shot prompt, Zach, that we've talked about in the past.
And now the moment we've been waiting for
I
here.
know. This
Now,
is like the big
I
reveal,
do have
dude.
to begin. The one comment I will make, if I go back to like TurboNet, keep in mind, this is the brand color palette. We didn't change anything there. We didn't fully rebrand. But if I open up our new website here we are. We are in a much better spot now. The internet your family actually deserves to live with. I have the quiz, which we kind of just talked about here. So I can come in here and, um, answer these questions. And I actually don't know what tiers we ended up on here. So let's see my plan. And of course, it's the family plan here based on what I picked here. I click see all plans, and now I have my dozen plus plans laid out in just four simple plans. And again, here, who it's for, it's households that stream browse, maybe a spouse on a work call, kids doing homework, the home office, smart TVs. We're talking about all these different use cases here. We still have that connection speed highlighted at the bottom here. We have much different price point spacing as well. But Gabe, I think this is a much better website already with that
I think that's
single
the
prompt we
understatement
did.
of the century.
You know what I'm noticing though, Gabe, is where's my ticker at the top? Where's that banner? Where's the
I
weather
know.
widget? It,
Yeah, it's
how
sadly
how am I going to know what the
it's
weather
gone.
is outside?
I know, it's such a bummer. No, it's well. So what's crazy to me is, I mean, that ran for what? I mean, it probably didn't even run for 20 minutes. We were just talking about other things, and so we didn't come back to it for 20 minutes. But in a single simple prompt. Yes, that prompt was a bit detailed, but it was just here's who here's who we are, here's who this is for, this is what we want out of it. We went from what we started with at the beginning of this conversation to this. And this is what Zach and I are talking about. Like, it's so easy to make these changes now, so easy to see these different iterations, whether it's on different AI tools or even prompting the same AI tool to see things in a different way. There's just no excuse to not have a site that actually converts and actually drives people to purchase the services that you're trying to sell versus that site that we looked at the beginning, which is never going to convert anybody. If somebody's going to see that, I mean, the bounce rate on that's got to be like 99.9%, man.
I don't know. I kind of like that website. It'd be a good April Fool's website.
I love that you created it with AI too. It's so great.
I love that we had this idea of like we should make a terrible website. And like I said, like we brought in what we've actually seen. So dramatized, yes, a little bit, but based on, what we're actually seeing in the market. And then
Yes.
AI, and I think it took like 5 minutes on that prompt, but AI built this whole new website for us based on one prompt. And now I could go in and I could tweak it. I could customize it a little bit more, make it my own. But I mean, even going back to these auto drift websites, happy to share those templates with anyone who's interested. Gave the prompt as well. But these are great conversations to have with your success team, with Gabe, even if you want to loop Gabe in as well. But
I have a really important question though, Zach. If
yeah,
people take the otter drift templates, do they have to have otters on their website?
I mean, if that's your brand, you'd be foolish not to, right?
Okay. I just thought you were encouraging people to get more otters on their websites.
That is my goal. I don't care about these templates. I just want to see that on people's websites.
I love this, man. This was awesome. Well, this was super fun episode. I appreciate everybody listening and hopefully watching and, humoring Zach and I as we tried to do something different.
I just hope we're gonna get like a text message, Gabe, or an email from someone who was listening to this podcast while driving, who's got no idea what we just talked about, but they listened anyway.
There we go. I love that. No, go
But
watch it on YouTube. Go watch it on Spotify. Actually see the video. I think it will help close the. It'll help complete the story for sure.
absolutely, and remove that weather widget from your website. But thank you for tuning in to Buffer. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn.